Alright, so let's look at some of the differences between the 8th generation Honda Civic Si and the 10th generation. So I recently picked up this 2019 Honda Civic Si with 36,000 miles, and I've been driving around for a while, and I previously owned an 8th generation Si for about 3 years, and there are a lot of differences, and I thought that I would make a video about it. So first off, as far as the exterior goes, obviously the 10th generation is going to be much more modern. I don't think I even have to say that. But there's a lot going on. It's pretty busy. You see these vents right here that actually aren't functional. The wheels are, I believe, 18s or 19s. They're definitely bigger than the 8th generation Si. Coming around to the rear, you do get a nice spoiler. This is probably my favorite part of the car. I really like this part. It seems a bit more subdued compared to the front, although you do have these vents as well, and the HDMI exhaust port, very famous. But yeah, it's a great looking car from the outside, I think. I think the coupes look a little bit better, yeah, let's take a look at the interior. Alright, greetings from the back seat. I'm going to talk about the interior of the Honda Civic Si, the 10th generation, of course. And first off, we can start with the infotainment screen, which is a 7-inch screen. By modern standards, it's 2020 when I'm filming this. It's a bit small, but it has everything that you'd want: Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, as well as a backup camera, so that's great. The seats are cloth, and I believe they're a lot nicer actually than the 8th generation. I think the bolstering is a little bit better, and they're just much more comfortable. And with these seats, you get a heated seat function, so and they give you 3 modes, which is kind of cool. One thing that, probably my favorite thing about this vehicle, I know it's kind of weird, but the sunroof here, the 8th generation had a sunroof as well. However, the 8th generation did not have a tilt feature, so if you push this, the sunroof tilts. And that's really nice because you're not opening it completely, and you're just kind of, maybe you can hear your exhaust. The exhaust doesn't really make much noise, but it's there. And then another thing that I like is the digital gauge. With the 8th generation, you did not get a completely digital gauge. There was an analog tach with just a number readout for the speedometer. You do get a nice brake hold feature, so if you push that, if you're on a hill, it'll hold the brakes for you. Then you have an electric parking brake as well, which I'd probably rather have a manual parking brake, but it is 2020 and everyone's kind of moving in that direction. That's okay. So that is the interior. I think it's really well laid out and thought out. Oh, one other thing, the storage is super excellent. Not the best, for lack of a better term. You have this area right here to put your phone. You can actually run your cords through here, and there's additional storage down here. As you can see, I have my USB plugged in there. But very good storage compared to the 8th generation. This right here, you have 2 cup holders, and you have like this module set up where you can actually take this out, or you can move it around, move this part around too. And this is really deep. You could probably fit like a 2-liter in there. It's crazy. So that is a really quick overview of the interior of the Civic Si. It's much more modern and really well thought out, I think. So let's get on to the driving dynamics. Alright, so comparing the 8th generation to the 10th generation, first off, the engines are completely different. So the 8th generation has a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine. This has a 1.5-liter turbo. What does that mean? That means that the naturally aspirated engine in the 8th gen, you really have to rev out to make power, whereas this is a turbocharged car, so as soon as you get the gas, you're going to have to wait a second. There's some lag before the turbo spools up, and then you get a lot of torque early on in the rev range. But it kind of runs out of breath in the upper tier, so about 45 to 6,500 RPM. You're not going to be making as much power as you'd feel like you are making an 8th generation. So this means that the 8th generation is actually more fun to drive, maybe around a track or where you're driving 9/10, because revving it out is really intoxicating. 8,000 RPM red line is really high. You almost feel like you're some sort of F1 driver. However, that can get really tiresome. just driving around town, having to rev that thing out to have any power to even pass someone, it can get pretty annoying. So that's when this car definitely has a big advantage, because when you hit the gas at about 2,500 RPM, you're slammed with about 200 pound-feet of torque, and it really moves. I'd say that this car definitely feels faster than the 8th generation, kind of at lower speeds. At the top end of these cars, let's say you did like an 80 mile per hour roll race on the freeway, they would probably be similar. I still think this would have the slight edge, but around town, 0 to 60 feel definitely with that significant amount of torque that this vehicle has, compared to the 8th generation. You feel that, and you can get up to speed quicker, it feels like, and it really puts you back in your seat, compared to the 8th generation. So it's kind of a more mature car, in my opinion. You don't have to rev it out, and you don't have to do that to pass someone. Kind of easier to live with. One thing I didn't mention was the sport button here, and when you press that, it lights up in red, and it actually has adaptive dampers. So when you're not in sport mode, when you're in comfort mode, the suspension is less stiff and more comfortable going over bumps and just driving in general. And then when you turn on sport mode, it stiffens that up. And I will say, you will notice the difference. And it's really cool, because at first I thought it was like almost a gimmick or something where you wouldn't really notice it, but it is noticeable. I'd say that the 8th generation Civic Si was probably somewhere between this vehicle's comfort and this vehicle's sport mode, probably right around the middle. I don't think it was as harsh as this car in sport mode, but not as soft as this car in comfort mode. So sort of the best of both worlds, if you will. But anyways, oh, and also, this video is all over the place. The shift feel. I think that this car has a much better shifting feel. I think it's a lot more notchy, and the clutch itself is a lot lighter than the 8th generation Civic Si. So it's actually more comfortable to drive in traffic, but also when you're driving more spiritedly. I think that the notchier feel of this shifter is a bit more inspiring. So there's that. So overall, the 10th generation definitely is a better car than the 8th generation. However, in like 15 years, if I were to have a garage and a bunch of cars, hopefully, I'd rather have an 8th generation, I think, because there's more character to the car. It revs out so high. It's like having a Yamaha motorcycle engine inside a family sedan, which is really special. But this car is definitely the better car to have every day. It does feel faster, and the creature comforts that you get here as opposed to 8th generation definitely make up for that. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I helped anyone with some problems with Honda Civics. So thank you.